This video contains traces of severe stupidity and scenes of graphic ownage. Viewer discretion is advised. Somewhere in the vastness of the universe lies the Virgo supercluster, a very average galactic supercluster, deep inside which is a very ordinary galaxy we call the Milky Way. In a small spur of this galaxy known as the Orion Arm sits a complete